In 1976, 8-year-old Mary Daisy Dinkle Bethany Whitmore lives a lonely life in Mount Waverley, Victoria, Australia. At school, she is teased by her classmates because of an unfortunate birthmark on her forehead, while at home, her distant father, Noel, and alcoholic kleptomaniac mother, Vera, provide little support. Her only comforts are her pet rooster, Ethel, her favorite food, sweetened condensed milk, and a Smurfs-like cartoon show called The Noblets. One day, while at the post office with her mother, Mary spots a New York City telephone book and, becoming curious about Americans, decides to write to one. She randomly chooses Max Jerry Horowitz's name from the phone book and writes him a letter telling him about herself, sending it off in the hope that he will become her pen pal. Max Jerry Horowitz, Philip Seymour Hoffman, is a morbidly obese 44-year-old Jewish atheist who has trouble forming close bonds with other people due to various mental and social problems. Though Mary's letter initially gives him an anxiety attack, he decides to write back to her, and the two quickly become friends partly due to their shared love of chocolate and the Noblets. Due to Vera's disapproval of Max, Mary tells him to send his letters to her agoraphobic neighbor, Len Hislop, whose mail she collects regularly. When Mary later asks Max about love, he suffers a severe anxiety attack and is institutionalized for 8 months. After his release, he is hesitant to write to Mary again for some time. On his 48th birthday, he wins the New York lottery, using his winnings to buy a lifetime supply of chocolate and an entire collection of Noblet figurines. He gives the rest of his money to his elderly neighbor Ivy, who uses most of it to pump herself before dying in an accident with a malfunctioning jetpack. Meanwhile, Mary becomes despondent, thinking Max has abandoned her. On the advice of his therapist, Max finally writes back to Ma and explains he has been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Mary is thrilled to hear from him again, and the two continue their correspondence for the next several years. When Noel retires from his job at a teabag factory, he takes up metal detecting, but is soon swept away and presumably killed by a big tidal bore while on a beach. Mary Toni Collette goes to the University of Melbourne and has her birthmark surgically removed, and develops a crush on her Greek-Australian neighbor, Damien Papadopoulos' Eric Bana. Drunk and guilt-ridden over her husband's death, Vera accidentally kills herself after she drinks embalming fluid, which she mistook for cooking sherry. Mary and Damien grow closer following Vera's death and are later married. Inspired by her friendship with Max, Mary studies psychology at university, writing her doctoral dissertation on Asperger's syndrome with Max as her case study. She plans to have her dissertation published as a book, but when Max receives a copy from her, he is infuriated, believing that she has taken advantage of his condition, which he sees as an integral part of his personality and not a disability that needs to be cured. Feeling betrayed and unable to put his emotions into words, he breaks off communication with Mary by removing the letter M from his typewriter who, heartbroken, has the entire run of her book pulped, effectively ending her budding career. She sinks into depression and begins drinking cooking sherry, as her mother had done. While searching through a cabinet, she finds a can of condensed milk and sends it to Ma X as an apology in an attempt to heal wounds. She checks the post daily for a response and one day finds a note from Damien, informing her that he has left her for his own pen friend, Desmond, a sheep farmer in New Zealand. Meanwhile, after an incident in which he nearly chokes a homeless man, Ian, Molly, Meldrum in anger, for throwing away a used cigarette, Max realizes Mary is an imperfect human being, like himself, and sends her a package containing his Noblet figurine collection as a sign of forgiveness. Mary, however, has sunken into despair after Damien's departure and fails to find a package on her doorstep for several days. Finding some Valium that had belonged to her mother, and unaware that she is pregnant with Damien's child, Mary decides to commit suicide. As she takes the Valium and is on the verge of hanging herself, Len knocks on her door, having conquered his agoraphobia, to alert her of Max's package. Inside, she finds the Noblet figurines and a letter from Max, in which he tells her of his realization that they are not perfect and expresses his forgiveness. He also states how much their friendship means to him, and that he hopes their paths will cross one day. 1 year later, Mary travels to New York with her infant child to finally visit Max. Entering his apartment, Mary discovers Max on his couch, gazing upward with a smile on his face, having died earlier that morning. Looking around the apartment, Mary is awestruck to find all the letters she had sent to Max over the years, laminated and taped to the ceiling. Realizing Max had been gazing at the letters when he died, and seeing how much he had valued their friendship, Mary cries tears of joy as she sits beside him on the couch.